I'm gonna introduce Denise again because now I'm recording. Just kidding. Denise, take it away.
Okay, well, now nobody's gonna know who I am. I'm gonna hide the candy and set up my fan. All right, guys. Can everyone hear me and see me? I was hoping the chair would help, but it doesn't really look like it is. Fine. Okay, good. So I'm gonna start with this. What do you guys know about who or what a Marites is?
Filipino.
Yeah.
This
Uh-huh.
somebody who yaks well.
Ah, there you go. You get candy. Do you guys know where it comes from? Like what, like the phrases, you know?
There's actually a woman named Marites
Yeah.
who's like likes to gossip about people
Yep.
on social media.
Yes,
Kit
but
Kat.
there's like a. Okay, so my cousin told me it's from Mare ito ang latest.
Oh.
So there's is a Marites someone you trust? No. So why? Or why not? Camille would trust her, but it doesn't look like very many other people would. So overall, not super positive. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about this character of Mother Marites and how she can speak to us. So I kind of feel like I need to issue like a disclaimer up front. I am not sitting here today to propose like a new way of theology. I'm not making a doctrinal statement. I just want to begin a conversation, maybe stir up some chismes about the framework that the Big C Church has designated to the practice and the spiritual practice of gossip, especially as it can function as a means of community care. And this conversation has been something really important to me, and it started with a question that Camila Hernandez, who's sitting right over here, posed to me about 3 years ago. And she was like, what do you think about this idea of gossip being framed as a uniquely female sin, so that these women who were being harmed in these communities couldn't speak about it and hence couldn't protect one another. And so the church made gossip out to be the culprit when it was, anyway, we'll talk about it. But I'm sure some of you have heard me use this Niels Bohr quote. He was a Danish physicist who won the Nobel Prize, and roughly translated, his quote was, the opposite of a truth is a falsehood, but the opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth. So the opposite of truth is slander, but the profound truth that gossip can cause harm and can be held in the same hands and breath as just the truth that gossip can contribute to our healing and the shaping of our blessed community. So from what I've been able to gather, it's through Filipino online culture and social media that there's this character, Marites. She's like this persona that has become a thing. Very similar to like a Karen, or like how tech bros and their girlfriends are Chads and Trixies, you know? So Marites has emerged as a central character in this chismis culture. So obviously, thanks to our shared Spanish colonizers, pastorinas, if you're in the room still, chismis or chisme is yet another word we have in common with our Latinx communities. So chismis, if it's not obvious at this point, is gossip. And Mother Marites is someone who talks a lot. And maybe you think it's her business and maybe you don't, but maybe Mother Marites could be inviting us to Truth's table to break bread together and not just simply spill the tea. Next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So even the etymology of the English word gossip feels a little patriarchally contrived to me. The Oxford English Dictionary traces it to the 11th century to godsib, from which godparent is derived. So by the 17th century, it came to describe conversations happening in birthing rooms, which where, for being honest, birthing rooms is where female power is on display in such a way that the men of that time just probably couldn't hang. Mm-hmm. So there were only women present in these rooms. So it was a descriptor of women's private whispering in birthing rooms. So interestingly, the King James Version of the Bible that came to be in 1611 during this period didn't contain the word gossip, but whisperers or talebearers. But subsequent King James versions and translations, they changed these references to gossips. And so that understanding of the word, more often than not, is the one used by evangelicals today. So as language evolves or deteriorates, in any case, what began as women simply having a conversation in a room became something poisonous or insidious. So, I mean, Aaron Burr was not in the room where it happened, and he lost his mind. So, so let's just see where we find the word gossip in the Bible. We'll just go with Proverbs for today. So Proverbs 16:28 says, gossips alienate close friends. And in Proverbs 26:20, we see, without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossips, conflict calms down. So it's not sounding great for Mother Marites and the chismes, but let's continue the second proverb. So without wood, a fire goes out. So there was this New York Times op-ed in 2021, and the writer looked at this proverb and pointed out that, like, fire is not always bad. Like, fire keeps us warm, fire cooks our food. It is not always destructive. And so neither so is Mother Marites and her culture of chismes. So just as fire has constructive uses, so too can words spoken within the community, helping us connect, protect, and inform. But even with this understanding, though, some people just want to see the world burn. Second Hamilton reference. Probably my last, but they're not paying me. This is why it's so critical to understand the difference between slander and chismes. So I got the help of a wonderful, beautiful Capua womanist, friend of FAMI, Camille Hernandez, who's in the room. She makes this delineation in her book, The Hero and the Whore. So she says, slander is rooted in lies. Gossip is rooted in truth-telling and accountability. When people can speak plainly about the actions of an abusive or predatory person, and I would add, or church, family system, or major evangelical domination that has allowed more than 700 cases of pastoral sexual abuse to occur over the span of 19 years, just off the top of my head, or presidential candidate convicted of 34 felonies. Hernandez says they are not engaging in slander, but advocacy. So how do we tell a story that has difficult parts that might need to be told? We boldly say out loud what is true. So chismes is advocacy rooted in truth-telling. We hear a lot in the church about the sin of gossip, but there's very little talk in the church overall about the sin of toxic systems of power and authority, or about abuse. So you see in these patriarchal societies and cultures where power matters more than people, where, like, white knuckling our dogmas and doctrines and orthodoxies becomes a greater sign of holiness than walking out our faith by participating in the struggle for the liberation of those oppressed by others, as the recently departed Father Gustavo Gutierrez described. Where basic human empathy and service to the least of these, who will know us by our fruits, by the way, is mocked by a supposed Christian right as a weakness or worse. And so in these places, these marginalized groups, especially women, and especially women of color, lack power and protection and dignity that they fully deserve as daughters of our Creator God. So we hold these traumas in our bones, sisters, all of us. And as our motherland fell to these colonizing powers, chismes became a survival tool. It was a way to share information and build trust, ensuring safety from those who held power over them. So I always tell my kids, we create our communities of safety and we keep one another safe. You can go to the next one. Thank you. So Mother Marites is in the business of cultivating communities of safety. So looking at the theme for this month, this is how we serve for those who suffer. We dignify their voices, their stories, and their experiences. So you go next one too, sorry. Filipino American writer Gladys Heitzman calls chismes a social skill that is interwoven into our culture, creating bonds and connections with each other. Sharing information with positive intentions can serve as a warning, resolve conflict, create or develop social relationships, and strengthen the community that makes this social communication possible in the first place. So as Filipino Americans, this is our legacy of Kapwa, that we carry with us, our collective consciousness and interconnectedness. Jillian, go to the next one. So, oh wait. Not yet, just kidding. Spoiler. EJRW, who many of you know, in his book, Brown Skin, White Minds, he talks about Kapwa inspiring this cultural Filipino value of the Bayanihan spirit. So Bayanihan spirit can be defined as mutual aid or cooperation. And he says, one cannot possibly behave in accordance with the Bayanihan spirit if one perceives himself or herself as separate from, if not better than, others. So this is the difference between an individualized, competitive, slanderous culture and a collaborative, community-centered chismosa culture. I think you told me this quote from Filipino American historian Don Mabalon, who said, "History is chismis with footnotes." So, right? So chismis has played a very pivotal role in Filipino and Filipino American history. Jillian now, sorry. So if you guys have watched the movie Gomburza or learned about the Filipino priests, Mariana Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, I had to write it down, I always forget all their names. They were executed in 1872 by Spanish authorities for supposed subversion against the empire in their fight for equal rights between Spanish-born clergy and mixed or Filipino-born clergy. So it was their martyrdom that sparked this wave of national consciousness and resistance against Spanish colonial rule. And Jose Rizal dedicated a book to these priests. So Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora broke bread with Mother Marites and began a revolution. So it was in these secret writings and these whispered conversations that even the term Filipinos was born as a means of uniting historically separate ethnic tribes. Next one. So this next example, you might recognize this picture. During the earliest 20th century, the Manong generation of Filipino laborers faced harsh discrimination while working in American farms and canneries. So chismis in this community helped them navigate these challenges by warning each other about hostile environments, poor working conditions, or predatory employers. They mobilized for labor rights and formed unions like the Filipino Labor Union and the United Farm Workers. So these early Filipino Americans, they often gathered in Filipino-owned cafes, restaurants, or homes, all at great personal risk, where chismis about immigration policies, labor unions, or even news from the homeland circulated. And a more recent example, go ahead. The People Power Movement. Yes, during the martial law years under dictator President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., Philippine government exercised strict control over media and public discourse. So chismis then became a vital tool for spreading information about these atrocities, this corruption, and these human rights abuses that were being censored by the state-sponsored media. So we saw this again when Duterte was president, and now as our countrymen struggle to retain the accuracies of this history, as Marcos Jr. and the Kingmaker herself abuse our Mother Marites into rewriting history. So it is chismis as community care that allows the truths of Filipino and Filipino American history to be told, even when those in power would intentionally smother it out. So remember that the liberative work of Mother Marites can offer a path toward justice, unity, and cultural survival. So I'll undo this quote by Cole Arthur Riley. Go ahead, Jillian. The oppressor can never be trusted as historian. Our task is preservation. Collective memory is a liberation practice. Remember and tell it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or responses?
Yeah, thank you for that, like, yeah, very, a lot of insight. But yeah, I wrote a question down in general, like, what is truth if it can't be spoken? Like, because I think about that a lot, because people are very uncomfortable with truth. So it's true. So
But it's
like,
true.
we're supposed to be all about the truth. but it's just, that really helped me open my mind to what truth is. When you're speaking of truth, you can't deny it. And you try to do that still. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Yes, KP.
Yeah, so like, I really like this talk because it reminds me of all the different times, like, my mom pulled me aside, like, after church, it's like, okay, what happened? Like, okay, hold on. And, but like, I think at first it's more, like, there was a certain stigma of like the whole, it's not, it's like, oh, like we have, it feels like we're doing it in secret, but I think it's also what ends up happening, especially with my mom, and I, and in our family also, but my mom is definitely the one, is the Marites of just like, okay, let's get this started, is more of just, she becomes the catalyst of action.
Yeah.
And I love that because especially when we're talking about church stuff, since we're in church context right now, that's just not always church, but when we're talking about church stuff, it's always the what can you do?
Yeah.
And I love that because a lot of times we hold on, like we need to let the truth breathe. And because it does, like it becomes an active component within our life. Instead of just being like having, I don't want to give like any examples or anything, but like, you know, like but I'm gonna give like a pseudo example, like if something happens in church or like a pastor says something, it just eats away at you.
Yeah.
Until my mom says, oh, what happened at church? Well, pastor said this. It's like, okay, so what are you gonna do about it? It's like, oh, I could do something about it. It becomes kind of like that, the realization that action can be taken.
Yeah.
Instead of internalizing your frustration, your pain, your suffering, now action can be taken for change. And I adore this, like this insight into it. And then you did say something that was very, like the whole idea of like the difference between slander and God, the slander and
That's
Jesus I
Camille.
love. Yes,
That's all Camille.
so awesome.
Yes.
Because I think, yeah, I think, and in our family, we do the same thing. We're just like, it's like we can keep talking, but are we going to be inspired, and led by our frustrations
Right.
to do something about it from ourselves? And I love the invitation to do it just by beginning the conversation.
Yeah. You want a piece of Yes, Tim.
Denise, I just really appreciate you opening up this conversation, and I think also giving us a new conceptualization of what this could mean, and just thinking about power and structures and advocacy. And then you're very aware too that it's like there is a label that gossip has, where it's like James 3, taming of the tongue, loose lips sink ships, and that there's a difference between
Snitches get stitches.
slander, between slander versus gossip. And I think maybe it could be helpful. It's like what are guidelines, what are some principles that can help us discern the difference between what is gossip, what is slander, because I'm sure we've seen ways that it can
Right.
move things forward, and then
Yeah.
ways that it can also just break apart a community.
Experientially, I don't know that I can like speak broadly into like, this is what the truths of these things are. But for me and some of my experiences in my life, there have been places where we do sit and we tell the truth. We tell the truth about the abuses happening in our church. We tell the truth about toxic pastoral leadership. But then what do we do about it? Like, are we protecting one another, or are we just like all feeding this festering wound? So I feel like, because I still don't think that's slander, telling the truth, like saying this is an abusive person, I still don't think that's slander, but not doing anything about it, not finding a way to find better communities for yourself and to protect those spaces. I think that's when it gets into like, it's kind of like, KP, what are you going to do about it? Like, you can't just sit in this. And even if it's true, die there. Like, move on and find like a healthy space. I don't know if that answers. Yes.
Okay, this is a question for everybody. What do you think about using chismes as a prayer request? Like, you know, Sister so did this and that. So let's pray for her.
That is my mom.
I mean.
Yes, Mom.
Yes. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it?
hard.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I have a very second generation answer where, and my family knows that, okay, so my context is different because I'm half Black. And so in like Taglish, we talk around the subject, but when you're Black, you speak very directly to a thing. And so when my mom has done that in the past, I've been like, well, Mom, that's really hard. And also, can you help me understand why that's bad? And it's like very offensive to her. And I get that, but it's usually like, I don't know, I'm always like, oh, I'll take, yes, let's pray. And then also like, I'll just be like, I think we should also pray of like how we handle this. Because I can't, like, maybe God will change them, maybe not, but I believe that God will change us because I know how we respond to them.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm the offensive child, so even saying.
Of course you are.
That's why we're gonna pull it, we all.
Same. That's great. Right. Yes.
Thank you for that. I think that's very insightful, what you said about chismes. But I was just thinking, when you think of chismes, at least in Tagalog, right, it inherently has slanderous.
Right, yeah.
connotation to it.
Kind of like gossip too. Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if it is necessary for us to, I don't know, preserve it, right, in a positive way by focusing on the positive
Right.
that you're making, right? Because, you know, chismes can also be the means for spreading misinformation, like spreading, I don't know, because it looks like we can just have normal conversations where we can have, where we can demonstrate something being true
Right.
and not really being slanderous. But,
Right.
but what is the need for calling it chismes? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because we don't have a word for it,
Okay.
you know, and it's like the closest approximation to like what it is. And so I don't know, I'm really interested in like redeeming words that have been lost to like terrible Gen Z slang or like, or, you know, like church labels.
Yeah.
So that is why I like use that word personally. But I'm also very excited about like constructing new spaces and new words. And I know that we're like still trying to think of a word for like female, like Filipino American female theology, because there is womanist theology, you know, and so we're trying to carve out our own spaces. And I think that maybe down the road, there's going to be some terminology that makes more sense. But like right now, I'm like, let's find the redemptive parts. It's kind of like, let's understand Darth Vader. He wasn't all bad. Not a Hamilton reference, so, you know. He had some stuff happen. There was trauma.
Hate it. I think, I just want to name that, I don't know how to form my thoughts well, but you're also addressing this thing about like cyber mythology, right? That like Marites is this cyber mythological character.
Yeah.
So then you take us from like this pre-colonial concept into like, what does futurism look like?
Oh, yeah.
And there's no question in this, but I would love for that to be an exploration of, I don't know about culture or theology or whatever context we put it into, but it is like as my personal experience as Filipinos is that we're always going back to the past.
Yeah.
And it's I don't want to say obsessive, but for me it feels obsessive. but it's rare that I feel like we hear ourselves placing ourselves in the future in such a way that you are doing. And so I was finding that I'm really grateful that you're not just placing ourselves in like what is presently known, right? Because chismoso culture is a term that was made popular on TikTok. But you're also saying like, hey, we have cyber mythologies that exist now and they can inform how we survive and thrive. So thank you so much.
That wasn't even purposeful. Thank you. Yeah, no, just more of a comment. Thanks so much for sharing. The one thing that was like coming up for me was, especially if we're trying to clarify what's like gossip and what's slander. And like one of my trains of thoughts was like, if like the Marites is slanderous, because sometimes when there's, sorry, the psychology part's coming out. So like when we're drawn to slander, it's because maybe someone is in like that higher power, as you mentioned, or is a higher social status. So it's bringing that action of trying to bring them down. Yeah. And scrap mentality. Yes. And so I'm starting to see that connection where when I think about like my own like Filipino family community context, it's like what's sad is that the Marites right now in my context is being seen as like not even someone doing bad, even someone doing well. It's like, oh, like they're doing so great, they're not actually that great. And then so let me say these things that could be slanderous to bring them down. And so it could be hard because maybe that was their way of being like, I don't know, try to humble the person. So it could be really messy really quickly. Yeah. And so I think part of your redemptive work is so needed. And I just see it really entwined in a lot of things that we see in like, especially Filipino American second generation culture. Yeah. There's like all those connective threads that make me feel like a crazy person. So I'm like, they're all connected.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Linda.
So first off, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. Niece. And I say that growing up, chismes is usually kind of negative connotation of like slanderous mostly, so that you try to avoid to be in a group where people talk about each other or other people. So that's what my experience growing up about chismes. And on the flip side, right now in our political system, since we're talking about the upcoming election, the slanderous things we hear on social media and television and all that. And I think that hits the point when you say it becomes very slanderous and dangerous when you don't do anything about it. Right. When you know it's wrong, when you know what you hear is not true, and then you sit around and do nothing. And so I think that also tells us to just be bold about what we hear that is untrue. And so that's kind of my take about on this topic of chismes versus slanderous. And chismes could be kind of like a gentle slanderous thing because it's just amongst women, especially my growing up was all these girls talking about other girls, and so it's kind of benign, but I think right now as we face this election, I don't want to be political, but it's you can't help it. It's right here. So I think we have to do something about it if we haven't already. So that's my take on it. And Denise, I love you.
Oh.
I know.
Or respond to that, please.
No, I
She
just,
loves you.
I know, I love it.
No problem.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming. I love you guys.
This is my husband, Pastor
Oh,
Scott.
this is Uncle Scott. That's great.
Hi, Uncle Scott.
Can we thank Denise one more time?
Still have candy.
I'm gonna adjust this for Tim. Face down.
Okay. Okay, mother.
You know, those of you who have just joined us, welcome. We're happy and honored that you are here. And as you can hear in the interaction between Denise and all of us, is that a lot of important thinking and work is being done in this community. We're not viewing Filipino American theology and theology as something that's simply static and out there. But recognize that done rightly, it should be coming from within our community. So,
Oops. Sorry.
so the theme for are we good? I think we're still okay, right? The theme for our symposium is ministry with those who suffer, because we recognize we're not just doing it for them or to them or at them, but that we're all doing this together. And a presentation like Denise's really reminds us that we're in a community where a lot of different kinds of communication are happening and are necessary. So that's really important, especially for people who are suffering, right? I don't know that there's a form of communication that might be more powerful than what comes out of communication that victims of abuse are forced to, right? If all that they or we can do is chismes, then we have to do that, to tell the truth when no one else will allow the truth to come out and people with power try to control the narratives. So I think that that is very instructive for us. So thank you, Denise. I'm going to introduce Tim, who's going to take us